Hello and welcome to Fraction Review Part 1. Now, our fraction review is a little bit more in-depth than decimals because they're a little bit more complicated. So we're going to start with understanding how to simplify and remembering how to add and subtract, finding common denominators and all of that thing. So if you're really good at this, you can zip through these notes. If this is not something you're good at, I need you to stop and rewind and make sure you're really strong in this, okay? Ask me any questions, please. I would much rather sit down with you and work this all out and get you strong now rather than wait till you fail the test. Please, let's do this early, okay? So, fraction review, part 1. I want you to remember that estimating works here too. So you're gonna round to the nearest whole number to make sure your answer is somewhere in the ballpark. If you have 6 2/8 plus 3 3/5, that's about 6 and 3 or 6 and 4. And you know that your answer should be somewhere around 9 or 10. And if you end up with 15 2/8, then you know you're probably wrong. So, okay? Okay, equivalent fractions and simplifying. An equivalent fraction is equal, notice the same part of the word here, equal to it, it's just said differently. For example, 3/4 and 6/8 are equivalent fractions because I can multiply the top and the bottom by the same number. So 3/4 and 6/8 are equivalent fractions. I can also divide the top and the bottom by the same number. As long as it's the same, it doesn't matter what I do to it. It makes these equivalent fractions. Also, when I end up with an answer that looks like this, we call this reducing. It's the same thing. Reducing and simplifying are the same thing, and in fact, at this stage of the game, reducing is required. If you do not reduce your answer, you get it wrong. So I need you to recognize the fact that these two numbers have a common factor of 2. And their greatest common factor is what you want to divide by, or you can just keep dividing by 2 and 3 until you get the answer, that's fine. But recognize that these two have a common factor and know that that's what you have to divide by to get it to reduce to the simplified answer that you need, okay? I don't have to divide by 2 and multiply by 2. I can use other numbers. 6 and 12, their greatest common factor is 6. And when I divide by 6, I get 1/2. Now, if you end up dividing by 2 and then dividing by 3, that's fine. That will also get you to the same answer, as long as you do that on the bottom as well. As long as you can recognize when your answer is not reduced all the way. Okay? Now on to adding and subtracting fractions. You have to have a common denominator and make equivalent fractions out of them. And then when you add and subtract, you add and subtract only the numerator. We're going to ignore this because it's a special case and we're going to deal with that later. So I have 1/4 plus 1/3. I have to find a common denominator, a number that they both go into, their least common multiple. So I choose 12. And I have to multiply the bottom and the top by the same number. 4 times 3 is 12, so 1 times 3 is going to be 3. 3 times 4 is 12, 1 times 4 is 4. Write these here if that helps you, to help you keep track. Now, when I add, I only add the numerators. So 3 plus 4 is 7/12, and then I double check and make sure that they don't have the greatest common factor that I need to reduce it. And I know that 7 is prime, so I know that I'm done. Kind of a helpful hint. If you know your prime numbers well enough, you can say, oh, it's prime. And it's not 7/14. It's not like 7 that goes into this one too. 7's prime and it doesn't go into this, so we're done. What about subtraction? And look, I've got mixed numbers too. It doesn't matter if it's got mixed numbers or not, you're going to treat it the same. I need a common denominator. My least common multiple of 5 and 4 is 20. 5 times 4 is 20, 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times 5 is 20, 1 times 5 is 5. And now I can subtract 8, just the numerators. 8 minus 5 is 3/20. 5 minus 3 is 2. Now I check and make sure. 3 is a prime number, so I can't reduce it, and 3 doesn't go into 20, so I can't reduce the fraction, so I'm done. All right? Is this all coming back to you? Now, when you're talking about adding and subtracting fractions, it gets hard. And the highest level of adding and subtracting fractions is something you have to master this year, because nobody's going to teach it to you anymore. They're going to expect you to know this. Now, this is the easy stuff. This is find a common denominator, make an equivalent fraction, add or subtract. Done. What happens when it takes one more step? And it's that one more step that can get a little confusing. All right, when you're adding, when you end up with the numerator bigger than the denominator. So, 3 3/4, 1 2/3. My least common multiple of 4 and 3 is 12. So that's my common denominator. 4 times 3 is 12, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12, 2 times 4 is 8. 9 and 8 is 17/12. 3 and 1 is 4. I can't leave it like this. When my numerator is bigger than my denominator, I have to fix it. Take the 1 out. So how many times is 12 going to 17? It goes in once. But I have to add that here. So this is going to equal 5. And how many are left over? 5/12. Now I got to double check and make sure 5 is a prime number, so it can't get smaller. 5 doesn't go into 12, so it can't get smaller. So I'm done. My favorite thing is when you end up with 4 and 17/12, and people are so involved in this. Oh, 12 goes into 17 once, and there's 5 left over, 5/12. There, that's my answer. No, the answer is not 1 and 5/12, because you lost 4 in there somewhere. You see that? So I need you to make sure that when you've got that whole number, you don't forget it. You add that 4 to, add the 4 to the one that you took out of here, okay? Okay. This is as hard as addition gets. It's not horrible, but this is as hard as it gets. Then subtracting. This is as hard as it gets. When your top number is smaller than your bottom number, what do you do? So, 6 1/3, 4 and 5/8. My least common multiple of 3 and 8 is 24. So, 3 times 8 is 24, 1 times 8 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24, 5 times 3 is 15. 8 minus 15 doesn't work. And I can't go negative because it's really 6 minus 4. This is bigger. So this has to stay positive. So really I just have to fix my fractions. Means I have to regroup. I have to borrow 1 from the 6. When I borrow 1 from the 6 to make that 5, I have to add it to this. But I don't want to say plus 1 because that doesn't help me. What I need you to understand is that when you're talking about fractions, 1 equals 2 over 2, or 4 over 4, or 7 over 7, or 11 over 11, whatever. All of these equal 1. Well, I want 1 that's going to add to 24ths easily. I've already got a denominator. I'm going to add 24 24ths to it. This is 1. This is the one I borrowed from here. I have to add 24 24ths to my 8 24ths. And now I got 32 24ths. I borrowed 1 from this, but I had to make it look like my fraction. So I add these together, I get this. Now it's 32 minus 15. And that equals 17 24ths. Now my subtraction works. And 5 minus 4 is 1. And I know 17 is a prime, so it can't get smaller. And I know 17 doesn't go into 24, so it can't get smaller, so this is my answer. This is as hard as subtraction gets. If you did not understand it, rewind it and try it again. I need you to see that when you borrow 1 from here, it looks like this, and the denominators match. the numerator matches, okay? If this was 15ths on the bottom, you would add 15 15ths because this is 1, okay? Make sure you understand that. You're not going to see it very often, but when you do, you have to know what to do with it, okay? Oh no! All right. Here's your practice. Da-da-da. This is all your practice. Did I just write on my wall? I think I did. Okay, so you're reducing these 5 by finding the greatest common factor and dividing the top and the bottom by the same number. These you are adding and subtracting, simplifying your answers, and then I give you 2 challenges each. I've got 1 addition challenge and 1 subtraction challenge, and then I got 2 negative number challenges with fractions. Give them a try, see how you do, and we'll talk about them tomorrow, okay? So again, stars, hazard signs, questions, and ask me, please ask me about anything that you don't get right tomorrow so that we can work through that, okay? And then we're on to reviewing fractions part 2. Fantastic. See you next.